Hey everyone, are you coaching your first year of AAU or travel basketball this season? It can definitely be overwhelming, but don't worry, I've got your back. I put together a couple tips here that I think are essential for new basketball coaches in the travel basketball or AAU basketball arena. So let's get started. Um, Number one is just setting a clear expectations for your team, right? I talk about this a lot in my videos. You want to make sure that, from day one, from tryouts, your whatever your vision is, and hopefully it's, disciplined and you want your players to move and hustle, but communicate those team rules to them, give them goals so that they know what we're working towards. Do little things that make your team look good. Like, for one example is we used to always go out and find a place to stretch and take a few moments before each game to just kind of focus on what the game strategy is going to be. We would talk about it, and then we would all line up in size order. So I would have the shortest player up front, letting him lead from the front and walking in. We all had standardized gear, right? Like backpacks, all uniform, looking sharp, because that helps, it helps kind of show that like team, cohesiveness, and everyone looks organized. And other team sees a team walking out, and they're all like, lined up, shortest to tallest. It just looks sharp. But you want them to have that certain level of discipline and just the commitment that you want them to have. They have that commitment coming out there. The effort that you want on that court, that's what they give you. Or they're sitting on the bench, right? Like, you want those clear expectations known to them, communicated to them, and then you want them to reap the repercussions or the benefits of either performing or not performing. And then not only work ethic, but also their level of sportsmanship for the team. Are they willing to do whatever it is for their team? You want to start with a strong practice plan, and you want your practice plan to be structured. And this can be one of the biggest challenges for a basketball coach. Is just figuring out, like, how do you want your basketball practice structured? You want it to be organized. You want it to be efficient. You don't want things running all over the place. You've got to maintain control of it. I can't give you a lot of advice here in this video, but I can tell you, jump on YouTube, jump on the way on Google, and just look for good, strong basketball plans or practice plans. I will tell you, if you're doing travel basketball or AAU, the first thing you need to work on is a press break. You're going to get pressed. No matter how good you are, you're going to get pressed. Your team needs to understand how to stay calm, cool, collected, and just get out of the press, right? Teach them to get the ball to the middle, pass the ball, don't dribble down the sideline. Focus, figure out what you want to do as a press break. Come up with one, and then come up with a second one, and master it and be good at it. That's my advice to you as a new basketball coach. Come up with a good press break. Press break. And then second, you want to teach your players running the lanes for fast breaks, because basketball nowadays is all speed. So those two things are very important. But you don't want to practice them the entire practice, but you do want to spend a good amount of time before you go to that first tournament, because you're gonna those other teams press, and then of course eventually you want to learn how to press yourself. You want to break down your practices into. I do like to do individual skill building, but I like to do that fast, give them 15-20 minutes of just nonstops, different stations moving around. But eventually you want to have your practices built into, like, where you're working different, offensive and defensive concepts, and you're working on those skills together so that it's a little bit more efficient. And then of course you always want controlled scrimmages and different types of activities that they're going to face in real, like, game situations. But just come up with what you want your practice plan to look like, and then just make sure that you incorporate it, and actually will be a lot easier for you once you have a game plan. Players will eventually be able to just run practice themselves. Focusing on player development. You want to balance the individual skills with team strategies. You want to encourage players to improve both on and off the court. You want them to practice even when they're not at. You want to give them like practice plans, like, hey, your free throw shooting is subpar. Here's what I want you to do to prepare yourself for that. You can give them a little bit of practice plans for at home. There's different things. I used to send players YouTube videos to have them watch, whatever skill it is that I want them to improve on. So think about that. And then, there's other ways to develop your team too, right? Like, figuring out kind of what's going on in their life will help you connect with them a little bit more, especially like if they tell you something during, your second practice and then you bring it up, 5 practices later. Maybe they had a test or something and you ask them a couple practices later, hey, how'd you do on that test? Did it work out okay? Or, whatever it is, just to kind of build on those, rapport building type activities, just to keep them, thinking that you care. Because when players think that a coach cares about them, they'll play hard even when it's time for them to take a break. For yourself though, you want to be able to, you're going to run into a lot of stresses during these tournaments. There's pressure from, not just the game pressures, but like making sure that everybody's where they're supposed to be, for check-in, or getting everybody to lunch, and not right before a game so that they're throwing up or they're too full to play basketball. But you're also going to have some high stakes moments during games when you're like, man, how are we going to win this game? Or what do we do next? We're down by 10, whatever the case is. When you're, paying attention to what's going on in a basketball game, knowing what defense the other team's playing and like what your team is doing wrong and why they keep losing the ball, or why they can't get a rebound, or what are the other team, who's weak on that team, where should we penetrate their zone, or which, if they're playing man, whatever it is, like look for those things. Figure out how to use your timeouts effectively. My thing, depending on the game that I'm playing, if we're down by 7, 8, 9, 10, I'll call a timeout, especially if it doesn't look good. The last thing you want to do is have a team run up the score 20 points and you haven't used your timeout yet. You also don't want to use timeouts too quickly in a game. So just, be aware of that. I used to keep either a player assistant or my assistant coach would keep the book for me so that I knew how many timeouts I had, and I also knew how many fouls each player had, and that's like constant communication. So, those are some of the ways that you can manage the game day pressures that you're going to face. Build team chemistry. I kind of talked about this earlier, but this stuff is going to get built automatically, especially when you go to these tournaments. These kids are going to be living with each other in hotels, traveling with each other in cars, eating lunch, eating dinner, eating breakfast, sitting on the bench, bonding through different, things that happen. They're going to know each other really well over this season. So, these things do happen automatically, I would say. But just be cognizant of it and don't discourage it, and maybe ignore some things and maybe not ignore some other things. But constantly emphasize to your team the culture, which should be positive, positive and team oriented. And that way when conflicts come up, you can bring that up to them, that, hey, this isn't the culture that we want. This is how we're going to deal with this problem. And hopefully you won't have too many more. So, your first season, it's just the beginning. If you've got a young team and you plan on taking them all the way through high school, your team is only going to be that much better. Maybe not in skill wise and in winning wise, but winning in life general, and just the type of impact you're going to have in a positive manner on these players, and then just the environment that you put them in with with these other parents. It's going to make them better people in the long run, so that when they're adults, they'll be able to carry that forward. But these are some of the essentials that I wanted to share with you. If you're a new basketball coach, I want to set you up for success. So if you've got coaching questions or challenges that you're running into in starting your travel basketball team, or trying to overcome some sort of obstacle, drop them in the comment section below. I'll help you out, do my best to answer them or make future videos. Please help me out. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with other first-time coaches.